Right, let's see if we're live. Are we? Are we? Let's see. Yes. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Hello, everyone, wherever you are, whether you're in England or whether you're abroad. Just give everyone a sec to log in. If there is going to be anybody joining me, Julie, hello, it's lovely to see you on. As Sally would say, you get gold prize. Just get everything sorted out. How are you, Julie? It's nice to see you on. Just give everyone 30 seconds and we're going to get cracking. It's not going to be a long one tonight. It's going to be short, sharp, and to the point. Let's make sure I've got everything set up correctly. Yeah, microphone, good. I've got my new microphone and I keep forgetting to set it up properly. So when I go live, people can just see me going. Hi, Leslie, lovely to see you on. So right, guys, we're going to get cracking. For those of the people that are late, you snooze, you lose. It's the way it is. So a massive welcome to all the new members. We've had quite a few this last week or two. Just a really, massive hello. Work your way over to the announcement section or the unit section where you will see 5 videos. And when you watch all 5, I call them the 5 steps of freedom. They're just introduction videos, which I do need to redo at some point because it's still, I mentioned my old group. This used to be called Being Human Being, and now it's Wake the F Up. So if that sounds confusing, that's why. So make your way through those 5 videos. And once you've made your way through those 5 videos, let me know in the last video and I'll send you a gift worth £100, which I think is fair. It's a fair trade for acknowledgement that you've done that. So guys, tonight, yeah, I'm really well, thank you, Julie. Really well. You can see I've been in the sun a lot today and I forgot to put sunscreen on, so I'm looking a bit red. But fortunately, I'm somebody that goes brown quite quickly and not too red. Otherwise, I would definitely look a bit like a lobster right now. So we're going to talk about people pleasing, and this is a big subject, man. Well, it is and it isn't. It's a big subject for a lot of people, as in it affects a lot of people. But it's actually quite simple, and I talk to people about this all the time, and people describe themselves as a people pleaser, and I can really identify with this. So this is for those of you, and let me know if you're a people pleaser. I want you to say people pleaser in the comment section, whether you're watching this now or whether you're watching this later. I want you to write people pleaser, because we are going to be talking about people pleasing in a way that you've probably not heard it before. And we're going to really delve into the actual truth about what people pleasing is and what it isn't, most importantly as well, because we do get caught up in it. And actually, people pleasing isn't about pleasing people at all. It's about something else. So the reason this resonates so much is because I spent probably the first 30 years of my life as a people pleaser. And actually, I remember having a job as a manager, of a regional fitness manager, when I got into the fitness industry 4 those years ago. And I had a team of 18 people at the time working for me, or with me, I should say. And because I was a people pleaser, that really screwed me over, because what actually I started to do, instead of actually looking at it objectively and getting okay with being uncomfortable, what I started to do was, with each member of staff, I tried to please them. I tried to do stuff, not necessarily just stuff for them, but I tried to make everybody happy. All right. And that's really not my responsibility, but I tried to make everybody happy. And actually what it did was it made things really messy, because then everyone was trying to get what they want and nobody really was working as a team. And that's kind of my fault. And it created a lot of tension between the staff, because actually it did create a lot of mixed messages. So instead of helping people explore why they're uncomfortable with what's happening and how we can create space for them to feel that and to find the okayness within that, or not, to have to accept it, what I started to do is try and make everyone happy, and it kind of screwed things up. And I've done it my whole life. I was the same with family, I was the same with friends. I would often, especially as when I went into my teenage years and beyond, and I started to get in the drug scene, I started to drink a lot, and I started to go down that route. What I started to find was that I was doing things I didn't really necessarily want to do. I didn't know it at the time. I wasn't like, I don't want to do this, but it just never really felt like me, right? So I spent a lot of my life not really feeling like me, but not really sure what me was, as if I had to try and find me or try and do this to be me. And it just became this identity. So as long as everybody was happy, then I was happy. But, I wasn't, because it led me to being really frustrated. I was really scared to speak up. I was worried about creating confrontation and conflict. But all the while, I didn't realize that I was constantly feeling conflicted because I was saying one thing and feeling another. So it kind of felt like this distortion between this is what I want to do, this is how I want to be, but this is how I am, and this is kind of how I have to be. And it was really uncomfortable, and it created a lot of suffering for me, actually, a lot of juggling, a lot of suffering. And I kind of found, I almost found a bit of martyrdom in it. It was like, hey, my life is about making people happy. And that felt almost good. It kind of felt good, but I just knew it kind of didn't, because I always ended up not really getting what I wanted. And it wasn't until I got into coaching, well, actually, I started running my business before that. I started running a personal training company before that, that I started to realize that I can't please people and serve them at the same time. And when I say please people, like the results that they got were pleasing, but I don't mean trying to keep people comfortable and trying to keep me comfortable. And what I started to realize was the more uncomfortable I got, the more willing I was to say what I really wanted to say and what really needed to be said. Pleasing went out the window, service came in, and they started to have transformation. And so what would happen, the pleasing went, but they felt really pleased. All right. So instead of me looking for pleasing, which is where we're going to go on to next, they were really pleased because they'd hired me to do a job. And I couldn't do that job if I was pleasing them. I can't help and please somebody and serve them at the same time, right? Helping and pleasing, service, right? In serving them, they were really pleased with the results, but they weren't always pleased or feeling comfortable within our sessions, because I wasn't there for that. And that's when it started to click for me. And I had some coaching around it. And as I was running my business, the minute I kind of pulled back on that pleasing thing, my business really started to grow. And that's when I got really curious about what that was all about. And what I started to see was that for me, and I can say this is confidently, I'm confident this is true for everybody. And please quote me if I'm wrong, but people pleasing is only about pleasing yourself. It's not actually about people pleasing. We might think that it is, and we can be buried down up to the neck or above 6 feet under in this belief that people pleasing is about other people and keeping them happy, and it feels good, and it's like, yeah, it's great. But ultimately, if we look a bit closer, we can see that it's because it makes us feel good. It makes us feel comfortable. All right. How many times have you gone to have a conversation with somebody and you held back because you know it's going to upset them, or you know what you've got to say is true, but you don't want to say it, so you hold on to it, and it leads to frustration? And there's this real correlation for me when I'm talking to people between passive aggressive behavior and people pleasing, because it leads to real frustration. So we take it out on others in other ways, right? And this might not be true for you, that's cool, but this is how I see it generally play out. So what we tend to do is, with people pleasing, if we realize that we're a people pleaser and it doesn't serve us, which at some point we tend to realize, actually, I'm not getting what I want here. And maybe this conversation will help you do that. I woke up. Now, this is about waking up this group. And I really woke up to the fact that I was pleasing others to please me. And in doing so, I was feeling really unpleased with myself because I wasn't happy. All I was comfortable. I was seeking comfort. And there is, honestly, for me, just seeking comfort, there is nothing really to be had there. Because what that did, it stopped me growing. It stopped me acquiring what I wanted. It stopped me expanding and having fun and expressing me. And what we tend to do as people pleasers, or what I see people doing, is that they'll look at the behavior, right? So it's like habits. It's like people pleasing as a habit. They'll look at the habits, or they'll look at the people pleasing aspect of themselves, and they'll say, I need to change that. I need to stop pleasing people. So they'll say, right, I'm not going to please people anymore. But then they get confused and they're like, well, what is there then? And then they go to a conversation and it's icky and it's messy and it's really uncomfortable and they're not sure what to say. And they might say too much and they won't say enough. And it gets a bit messy, it gets uncomfortable. And it's because we're focused on the wrong thing. People pleasing or behavior, any behavior, it's a symptom, not the cause. If we do the same with habits. When we talk about habits, it's the same as people pleasing. When we talk about habits, if we focus on the behavior, we get rid of that behavior, it will be replaced by something else. And often people pleasing makes us feel comfortable. right? It's a habit like any other. That's what habits are there for. Take that away, you'll seek comfort in other things. So nothing's actually changed other than the behavior. And it's pretty confusing for you and other people because you change, they change, but then you're kind of not changing. All right, it just becomes really messy. So don't focus on the behavior. That's one thing I often encourage people to do. True transformation comes when we look at the cause of the behavior. And the cause of the behavior when it comes to people pleasing is that we feel like we need to be comfortable. We need to be comfortable. We need to be okay. We need to stop feeling conflict. We need to be happy and comfortable and not, not conflicted. But you cannot ever have that permanently. And so here's something that you may or may not find useful, but if you're a people pleaser, right? If you're somebody that identifies as people pleasing, I know there's a few people in here already. Hiya, Joe. Hi, Mum. Hi, Sandra. Lovely to see you on. There's something that we can do which really, really helps to not focus on the aspect of people pleasing, to not focus on the behavior, but to focus on the cause of the behavior, which is, like I said, if anything, it's all of our issues is being uncomfortable. Being okay with being uncomfortable is the solution. And I don't mean it needs to feel okay. You're not suddenly just going to be okay. You're going to have guilt. You're going to have stress. You're going to have selfishness coming in. You're going to have all these stories playing out. But that for me is the key of transformation and waking up. That those stories don't have anything in them. They're just old behaviors, old patterns, they're learned conditioning. And when we can experience them without attaching an action to them, then we start to change. And so what I recommend for people, and this happens a lot in relationships, I work a lot of people in relationships, especially in the corporate environment. If there's like two people or a group of people having issues, often it's because communication has broke down and they're not just talking enough, and they're not listening enough. That's the main thing. They don't listen enough. People are more than willing to talk, but not to listen. So what we do is we get them to have to communicate. And what tends to happen is that in a relationship, if you don't communicate, you have what you've got expectations and agreements. And if you don't have agreements, a relationship ends up in expectation. And then that causes stress and all sorts of stuff. So what I get people to do is create agreements in a relationship. So if you're a people pleaser and you want to change a relationship with yourself and you struggle with communicating with people, if you're a people pleaser, set the context first. It's really easy when you're changing, because I noticed when I stopped pleasing others, when I really realized what I was doing, it was just because I was uncomfortable with my experience. It was difficult for those around me, especially my best friend. It was really difficult for him and others around me to see, oh, you're changing, what's going on? Why have you said that? This isn't Sam. Why have you changed? They were looking for reasons that I changed. I hadn't changed. I was just being me. Is that my behavior had changed, right? And what started to happen was I started to be able to communicate more openly. So this was really helpful for me. And I do this in coaching too, which is context, setting the context. It's like setting a dinner table so you can have a lovely dinner, right? It's so everybody knows what everything is and everybody knows what's going on. And that might look like, instead of that icky conversation of, oh, I just, you know what, I really hate that you said that and all this sort of stuff, is like, look, can I share something with you? Can I have you hear me? Would it be okay if I have you hear me and for you to really hear what I'm saying without taking it personally, without taking blame? And if you do take it personally, if you do take blame, let me know and we can come back to the conversation later when things have calmed down. Can I tell you something? Can I share with you how I'm feeling? I don't want you to take this on as a reflection of you, but I want to tell you what I'm feeling so you can be clear on what I'm thinking, so I can feel like I'm communicating clearly with you and be me. And that sets up the context. And the beautiful thing about that is we get to show up honestly with integrity, but we also allow ourselves to be heard. So if you're not used to that environment, if you're not used to being really honest and open with people, if you're not used to saying really how you feel, if this is the first time you've heard this and you're thinking, God, actually, yeah, I'm not really honest, because often I put everybody else first and I don't think about me. And a lot of it is because we start to feel guilty and selfish, yada, yada, yada. But again, that's conditioning, it's story. You've got to be willing to experience those things without assigning action to them, just being with them and knowing what they are. And what that does is it allows us to really show up. It allows those people around us. And this was the key for me. This was the real juice, is that it allows people around us and ourselves to have real relationships, because those people around us start to know who we are. And it might mean that relationships change. It might mean that people go and they come back. It might mean that people just go. It might mean that no one goes. But what happens is those around us really start to know who we are. They really get to know who we are. We get to know who we are. We get to learn who we are. We get to see our personality in the fullness of what it is, rather than just the bits we think we should show and the things we like and the things we're not comfortable with. We keep back. That only leads to stress for me. It only leads to frustration. I see it all the time in clients. And so for me, the vulnerability piece isn't about, it's not about being open to harm and being open to, it's open to harm. It's being honest. Vulnerability for me is just being honest and the knowing that there's no one there to be harmed. You're being yourself truly. Personality shows up, but that conditioning can really put a fog on our personality. So I just want you guys to consider that, because for me, again, this whole people pleasing thing isn't about pleasing people. It's always about pleasing you. And it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? That, again, coming back to it, that is essentially the source of all of our problems. Trouble is we focus on the behavior. It's like all habits. The habit is not the problem. We may see it as the problem, but if you take the habit away, it'll be replaced by another one, simply because that is not the problem. The source of the problem is that you're not okay with being uncomfortable. You're not okay with feeling discomfort. You're not okay with whatever shows up in that moment. And when we can do that, when we start to explore that, we start to see that, even a glimpse of it, you're waking up to the idea that this experience is okay always, because it is as it is. There isn't an alternative. There is always this, whatever that looks like. The behavior, the people pleasing, the habits stop making sense. And you don't have to force it. You don't have to try. They just stop making sense. And you might have the same stories ticking over. Of course you will, because they're imprinted in the brain. They're not going anywhere. But you start to see that's not who you are. It's who we've learned to be. And so I just wanted to bring that up for discussion, because this people pleasing thing goes on all the time, and I see it a lot, and I am been there myself, and I still like it in a way. Like when I'm coaching people, and I know that there's something hard that person needs to hear, and I can feel it and I can see it. I'll set the context and I'll say to them, this might be the hardest question you've ever been asked. Are you prepared to hear it? Are you prepared to go there? Can I ask you something that is going to cut deep? But I need to say it to you, otherwise I wouldn't be serving you. And the answer is generally always yes, with a bit of trepidation. And people are so damn grateful, so grateful. Some of the best coaching sessions I've ever had is when I say to somebody, are you really willing to hear this? And they say yes, and I say it, and they're like, do you know what, Sam, I didn't know it, but I've been needing to hear that for years. So that's it, guys. People pleasing in a nutshell. It's not about pleasing others. It's about pleasing yourself. And if you're open to that idea, you can start being open to changing it. Right? So don't focus on the people pleasing and try and take it away. Focus on the cause of it, which is, generally speaking, I'm not comfortable with being uncomfortable. Okay. So, all right, what we got here. I'm sick of trying to people please. Done it all my life. Yeah, no worries, Stacey. I'm glad that resonates. Hello, Neil, mate. Joan, that's funny, because I do feel uncomfortable around people who are not people pleasers. Yeah, absolutely. You know what, Joan, this isn't, and again, what I really want to make clear, and thank you so much for saying that, Joan, what I really want to make clear is that this is not a blame thing. Never, ever, ever in this group am I ever going to blame, to make people feel bad, anything like that. I mean, I know you guys know that stuff, but for anybody that's new, this is a mutual exploration, and some of the things you hear will be hard to hear, because of ego doesn't like to hear things that it's identified with, or an ego is identified with, but ego doesn't, to keep things really simple, ego doesn't like to hear that it's wrong. All right. And that's what causes this initial conflict. But if you're okay with experiencing that, you can start to see what's outside of that filter. And that's when transformation occurs. And Joan, that's bang on the money. You know, it's an important point. And what you said there is, yeah, it's hopefully this has highlighted that. And so what's really great is that we can now move forwards and just get really curious, right? It's just really, really curious. And I have this saying that I say to people, which is, yes, curiosity killed the cat, but it creates the lion. And obviously with the curiosity, we kind of stay away from that sometimes, or we kind of hold back. And for me, all of our experience is open for us to be curious with, to explore. And guys, I've seen people change their whole life just by being curious, just by digging around and exploring what's true and what isn't. I've seen people go from a kind of a ball of nerves and being stuck to out there doing what they want to do. And that's not me saying that happens to everybody, because it doesn't. There's a lot, it changes for different people. But what I see most often is that when we get curious and we explore, that's where the juice is, that's where the magic happens. And that is what this is about. So I just look at your own experience and have a play with it. I'm more curious noticing where it's at. Yeah, exactly that. And that's the whole point, Joan. It's like just that, again, like for me, the best, it's not even really about coaching. I mean, can I say the best coaches are the most curious ones? Yeah, of course. But this isn't necessarily about coaching. It's just about generally people aren't curious enough about their experience. They take what they think for granted and truth when it isn't. It's learned. A person isn't born. The person is learned. And that's the beauty of this. We get to experience the learning, but because it's learned, we can relearn. We can reinvent ourselves at any time. All right. Hi, Claude. One thing I decided to be happy being me and not pleasing people. Yeah. So I'd be really curious, Sue, you know, how that experience plays out for you. You know, when you decide not to people please, I'd be really curious to see if any people pleasing still occurs, and just have a play with that and let me know how you get on with it. Really curious. So that's it, guys. Lots of love. I'm going to go to the shop because we need some vine tomatoes. My wife has asked me to get some vine tomatoes. I've got no idea why, but I'm going to go and get them. I'm going to see what happens. People pleasing. Lots of love, guys. Have a wicked week. If there's any questions based on this live, post them in the comments. Absolutely love to answer your questions. And really get curious about people pleasing, not being about pleasing others, but about pleasing yourself. And let's see where that goes. So lots of love, team, and I'll speak to you all soon.